Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, is into a new line of business, HR. His first job is deciding which of his best mates should have a target painted on their forehead when he is taken down by the Israelis. Three clerics have drawn the short straw. His son is going to sit this one out. Perhaps he just learned about the fate of Saeed Izzadi, head of the Palestinian core of the IRGC, who died, probably in bed, when his apartment was surgically disassembled last night. Izzadi was an evil son of a bitch, one of the leading people behind and one of the founders of the plan to destroy Israel on October the 7th. Justice served.
And later on, we'll discuss how in the UK, this island of strangers, the government is getting quite cozy on its far-right bandwagon, and so much so that it's about to designate the enemy within, a pro-Palestinian organization, as a terrorist organization. This is huge because the UK is the government that can't quite make up its mind about designating the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps as a terrorist organization itself. But James, talking about the IRGC, first of all, welcome to the Daily Objective. Today we're joined by Michael and James. James, while we're talking about the IRGC, what do you think about the latest news? In particular, first of all, the issue about Khomeini and his, number one, two, and three, and perhaps four, perhaps six. Who knows?
Well, that was very kind and convenient of him for to identify for Israel the next targets, as you point out. It's not just obviously the man who was killed richly deserved it. He was one of the architects, one of the men who made possible the atrocities, the hideous atrocities on October 7th. But it's not just him. He could not have done what he did to supply Israel's enemies if it weren't for a greater leadership. That's why Israel cannot hesitate to hit the top political leaders in Iran. And that is critical. It is critical in terms of giving Iran a chance. It's critical in terms of the long-term success of all this. This is a golden opportunity that Israel has given us in opening up Iranian airspace. They control the air. And if the world is to have a long-term settlement of this issue, really something better has to emerge in Iran. Now, that's up to the Iranian people, of course. It's their responsibility. It's their government. Governments will reflect the culture of the people. But we've been told time and again, and we have very good reason to believe that many Iranians want something better. But for that to happen, we have to take out the leadership. They're lying to their people. And that really must be stopped. Insofar as the Iranians and the Iranian people have very good reason to believe that the West will turn their back on them, because every time they try and rise up against their government, the West, so America, my country, shamefully turns its back on these people. So yes, I would urge Mr. Netanyahu and his team to go after, well, not just his three successors, but go all the way up to the Ayatollah. These are the people who've been giving direction all along. These are the people who've been supplying Hamas, Hezbollah's affiliates, the Houthis, all of them. And what we need is not merely a change in personnel, although a delightful way of you had of putting it, HR. But look, he's thinking straight here in the sense that he has a target on his back, but anyone who might be a potential leader there, we have every moral right. Any civilized country has every moral right to take out these monsters. A dictatorship, as Ayn Rand said, is a state of war of a government against its own people. It is dictatorships which are the cause of every war. I urge everyone to read, I've done it before and I'll do it again, urge everyone to read Miss Rand's article, The Roots of War, which you can find in Capitalism, the Unknown Ideal. But no dictator has any legitimacy. They should not be treated with legitimacy. That gives moral sanction and comfort to the oppression of their own people. But when a dictatorship becomes aggressive, like Iran has become, when it attacks through its proxies or directly Israel, international shipping, Americans in the region, which Iran has been doing for decades, then they are a threat to the world. They're a threat to civilization. These are murderers intent on death to Israel and death to America, and they hate Western civilization. Its end is their goal. We cannot let that fester. These people must all be taken out, and taken out with moral confidence, clarity, and knowing that we're doing the right thing for civilization. So do not hesitate, Mr. Netanyahu. Do not hesitate, please, Mr. Trump. Giving them 2 more weeks, in my view, is just the wrong approach. As I say, if there was some military reason for it, then just don't tell us and do it in our right time. Do not give them the moral sanction of thinking that we believe the Ayatollah to be a legitimate leader of a Middle Ages theocracy that oppresses its people, kills its own people to stay in power. That poses a threat to every civilized nation on the earth. And how many Israelis, how many Americans need to be killed? For hundreds, thousands have been killed by Iran over the last 46 years. Something must be done. This is the moment to do it. Israel has given the world the moment to do it. So please, Mr. Trump, do it.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, James. And I'm sure giving the extra 2 weeks has allowed him more time to pick out a list of who should be next in the line of succession. Although ultimately it is decided by the Assembly of Experts, because even a supreme leader has to be decided by committee, doesn't it? So, Michael, does it really matter who follows him, given that they're going to be pursuing the same ideology? And of course, does it matter that Israel knows exactly who they are when they could cast the net wider than the 3? We don't need to know their names to work out who to take out, do we?
No, it doesn't matter. I think one of the excuses that the liberals, typically liberals, and basically the cowards like to say as well, we can take them out, but they're just going to be replaced by other people that might be worse. And the first point is, I'm not sure what it means to be worse than screaming death to Israel, death to America. And what they mean is death to the entire Western world, death or conversion, and conversion to Shiite Islam, by the way, not Sunni Islam, Shiite Islam only. But when someone says death to somebody, that's kind of the ultimate, and that's the end. They've forfeited that is the first, that's the first strike, and you have the absolute right, as James said, to come back with similar force, because it's not appropriate. It's only appropriate in really idiotic, progressive, woke ideology to allow someone to shoot you first, and then you say, oh, you shot me, that wasn't very nice. Maybe we should sit down and discuss it, because that's kind of the other side of this. But the point is that as many people as they put up, we put them down. This is whack-a-mole. You shoot one, another one pops up, you shoot it again. For those of you who don't understand the philosophy here, think about this. I've had patients. I have patients who have recurrent infections. They do because their immune system's a bit weak. And so their lifetime, they could be on infection number 30. Do we say to them, it's really been annoying. Every time we give you an antibiotic, you get better. But geez, 6 months later, you got a new infection. And frankly, it's enough. Infection number 32, we're just tired of it. We're going to let you die because we tried and it didn't work. And it's your responsibility now to stop getting infected. Obviously, this is absurd. But if you think about the ideology that says there is some kind of a limit on how many times you need to get rid of these people, the answer is as long as it takes. And that's the simple answer. As long as they keep popping up and keep saying death to America, death to Israel, death to the West, we knock them down. And by the way, if we understood our moral standing and had the strength and clarity to knock these people down immediately, instead of letting them surround themselves by hundreds and thousands of missiles and making those missiles now with cluster bombs at the end of them, and now eventually putting nuclear material on the missiles, because you don't need an ICBM with a nuclear bomb on it. You can put an ICBM with a dirty bomb on it, and they have intercontinental ballistic missiles, Iran. We have dirty material that's north of 60%. enriched, which is way above the 3% or 4% you need for the maximum purity for any medicinal or commercial use, and blah, blah, blah. It's absurd. The names of these people do not matter, of course. They are, I mean, it's in medicine, we always like to name stuff. And one thing I understood early on from my patients was they really didn't care what the name was. They cared what the treatment was. And it's the same thing here. The treatment is always the same. Obliteration.
Yeah, absolutely. I love your medical analogies. They always make it super clear when we get to the principle. Thank you very much, Michael. And
Sure.
the bombs you were talking about there, those cluster bombs, which cause splintering, can be extremely dangerous. Although they cause not necessarily the same on immediate impact because
Right.
they spread over a wide area, and sometimes they can be discovered and blow people up later, unexploded bits of them, can cause a lot of carnage, can't it? But I wanted to thank our super chatters who've got in very early. Thank you very much. PC, thank you for yours. Who says, I saw a big pro-Palestine march in London today. Yes, there is a big pro-Palestine march in London today, you're right. And no doubt, though I haven't seen footage of it yet, but no doubt it's full of Iran flags as well as pro-Palestine flags, because Trafalgar Square certainly was the other day when the same group of people were gathered. And it's incredible that it's still happening here in London.
Although the biggest pro-Palestinian march is called UK government, so that's just it.
Yes. Yeah.
Or by the Democratic National Convention here. It's the equivalent.
Sure. Yeah. I'm sure they wear Iranian underpants.
Yeah.
A PC has also given a super chat to say one English couple had a sign, hands off Iran. Yeah, you've seen plenty of signs of that nature, certainly on the Trafalgar Square one for sure. So yeah, thanks for highlighting those points, PC. That's great. We appreciate it. Equal to Reality has been a member for 37 months and says, I saw a pro-British, pro-Israel Ulster band march today instead of the usual pro-Palestine march here in Leeds. It was refreshing. And rare, sadly, yes. But thank you, Equal to Reality, for a bit of cheer, and Bonnie Bertrand for your super chat. Thank you, Bonnie, a regular super chatter, and also to Gail Parker for yours. We appreciate it, Gail. Thanks very much indeed.
Yeah. Going back to the Supreme Leader, I mean, he's allegedly nominated three people. We don't know who they are, but of course they are under clerics, understudies, people are trying to learn how to be a good dictator. And of course, these guys are, as I said, clerics, because the Supreme Leader is effectively a glorified shaman, talks to the sky and all this kind of stuff. And then each of the new possible member have been given a pager and been told, when it goes off, it's your turn. Yeah, if only.
I have heard that the Ayatollah is not using any cell phones at all. The news that came out that also came with this story was that he's only communicating via an aid, not because cell phones are the devil's work, but just because he is concerned about when they ring.
And as James was pointing out earlier on, the authority that come to these guys and whoever is going to follow him is based on some medieval religious, make believe. And that's how they're keeping their population enslaved, which is just laughable, especially, a regime that uses, as Richard and Michael pointed out, cluster bombs. I mean, they're effectively spreading landmines all over the place because the cluster bomb, they tend not to explode on impact necessarily, and often are left on the ground unexploded in order to impair the civilian population. I mean, a regime that does this to a bunch of civilians is just reprehensible. Yet we see our supreme leaders in the West who keeps trying and convince us that sitting at the table with these barbarians, it's actually the thing to do. That's just incredibly disheartening. Despite the fact that Israel is carrying on, to use a Churchillian speak, Israel keeps baggering on and keeps banging and bombing the facility in Iran. And that's why they are pushing the launches from all the missiles that live in Iran for Israel further and further to the east. So it's harder and harder for the Iranians to harm Israeli. But unfortunately, the defenses for Israel, usually around 10% will go through. So it's just a number game. Israelis are under constant threat. The world has been under constant threat by these monsters. So there is no justification why we should allow them to survive another day.
PC is asking the question that, frankly, we're all asking, and he's put James on the front of it. So I'll come to James with the question, which is, why is Trump waiting 2 weeks? Why not just decide today? What do you reckon, James?
That is a hell of a good question. All I can say, that's a really, really good question. As I say, I think that it is for domestic political consumption, international political consumption, not the reality. We're going to give them a chance. Now, Trump has clarified the 2 weeks are a maximum thing. It could happen sooner, and the sooner the better, Mr. Trump. He has indicated that he believes that America is required to take out the Fordo underground facility, and he's probably right in terms of our ability to be certain about it. Any commando raid by Israel would be fraught with incredible danger to the men who would be sent there. And there'd be questions about the ability to extract them from that location. Could Israel do serious damage to that location? Absolutely. But for us to have the most certainty that that facility is destroyed, it requires these new giant bunker buster type bombs and repeated hits. Now, the good news is that there was recently 6 of these big bombers that can carry these bombs that we're seeing taking off for Guam. I think the reasonable inference is that they're being set up to do just that. So my hope is that that's what Trump is planning to do. Iran keeps saying that they refuse to negotiate so long as Israel is attacking them. Israel cannot stop attacking them, obviously, and I don't think will stop attacking them. For example, Natanz was hit again. Other sites have been hit again. Israel is still doing what they have to do and what they can do. So if there are strategic or tactical elements to Trump's thinking, then okay, and maybe he is. It's hard. It's always hard to read Mr. Trump, but there are elements within his own administration. There are elements with friends of his intellectually who are very much opposed to Israel, who frankly are on the what I call the anti-Semitic right, and they need to be appeased, I think, to some extent in his mind. And so I don't want to psychologize. I have no special insight into Trump's psychology. Excuse me, but I do believe that it is necessary to do this. And I don't think it's necessary for Trump to appease those of his political friends in this country. He should just ignore them. And like Israel, he should just ignore international opinion. International, no matter, Mr. Trump, no amount of, hey, I gave them a chance for 60 days, and heck, I'm giving them another 2-week chance. That's never going to convince the world. That's never going to convince the nations of the world. They are going to oppose any action against Iran. For some reason, leaders in Western Europe have believed that there is some legitimacy to this evil regime. No, there is no legitimacy. The Ayatollah and his religious thugs probably don't even reflect the majority opinion of the people of Iran. Why on earth are governments of this world coddling Iran? I do not understand it. They have been the world's leading sponsor of terrorism for decades now. They are not legitimate. Israel gets all kinds of grief from the secular left. Let's put it that way. In my country and in other countries. Well, gosh, this is the Jewish state, a place where Jews can be, free. So therefore, because they have some religious element to their politics, well, guess what? There's a religious element to the politics of every country in the world. Iran is different. They are based on religion as such. They're all about mysticism. They're all about their fanatical view. I mean, it's not simply that, say, Christian altruism is causing them to be pacifist. That element exists in the United Kingdom. That element exists in the United States. Of course, people are affected by their deeper philosophy. That does not make a country illegitimate. When you compare Israel, how secular Israel is, it's like a Western country. Is there a religious element within their politics? Absolutely. But is there a religiously affected element in the politics of every Democratic or Republican type government in the world? Of course they are. These fanatics are governed by mysticism. They have abandoned reason. They have abandoned any rule of law in terms of just establishing a theocratic dictatorship. Another essay I'd recommend to people by Ayn Rand is Faith and Force, Destroyers of the Modern World. Christians and Jews went through an enlightenment. They still may be Christians and Jews in the West, but they went through an enlightenment where they understood that politics is over here, religion is over here. Yes, it will affect our moral thinking about things, and will inevitably affect their, and I wish people would abandon mysticism altogether, but it has the inevitable effect. If you can't use reason, you're going to use clubs and guns, and in the case of Iran, tactical missiles, guided missiles. And it would be really foolish of the West to think that somehow this leopard would change its spots. It won't. It exists for one reason: the destruction of civilization.
Yeah. And that's the dangerous component within Iran itself, because it's making now what it's seen is on the back foot politically and militarily. It's now putting it on the Islamic stage, if you like. Already the President Pezeshkian made effectively the point that this is an attack on Islam, and Islam countries should get together to defend blah blah blah. And Erdogan did exactly the same during a conference of Islamic countries, I think yesterday. Whereas effectively is insinuating an attack on Iran is an attack on Islam, and this is a absolutely diabolical route. I mean, if you open this can of worms, if you open this Pandora's box, you're never going to get out of it. And when people like Trump, who's been during the election and immediately after, he kind of was going around blustering, oh yeah, I can sort out Russia and Ukraine, I can sort out Hamas and Israel. Now I find himself, what is he doing, Michael? I mean, if he doesn't take a proper position and try and save his reputation a bit, it's going to look like a weak man, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a growing saying in America: taco, Trump always chickens out, TACO, and it's designed to get under his skin on purpose, because we hear a lot of this boastfulness, etc. His whole 2-week thing, I have to say, I'm a little more encouraged today than I was yesterday, and I'll tell you why. The press and the discussion over the launch of these B-2 stealth bombers. These, by the way, are some of the most stealth aircraft in the world. Apparently, there is no radiation, radiation signature. There is no way to pick these. They are truly, when they're in stealth mode, they're stealth. But we found out where they're coming from. It's unknown. They're in Missouri now. We have the wherewithal to move these things wherever we want to. And they could have taken off from secret base quietly. But no, this is quite up on the world stage. It's all drama. We've got pictures of them. We've got pictures of them traveling to Guam. Like, guys, here they're going to go to Guam. So if you want to shoot us, let's shoot us in Guam. Now, obviously, they have all kinds of protection and so on and so forth. And we don't really know all this. And it will take so and so long for them to get to Guam. And then on one, I think they need one refueling to go round trip to Iran from Guam. But they can certainly get there and then start on the way back and then be refueled in the air to get there. And that's all I know. I'm not an expert by any means. But there's a lot of discussion about this. And the second thing that's happened is that the genius Europeans, who are always on the right side of history because they didn't suffer enough in World War II, I guess, neither did the Americans, apparently, they decided to sit down with Iran yesterday. And I'm sure they were they had a very good discussion for, I think, 3 hours. That's how it was described. And they found out that Iran isn't going to give up on any of its defensive capabilities, which means ballistic missiles. And they found out that Iran, if you listen to Putin, Iran doesn't have any military nuclear enrichment, according to Putin's read of Iran. And Iran's not going to give up on enrichment. And one wonders what exactly they talked about for 3 hours, because this is the same baloney that we've been listening to the entire time. And the third, sorry.
Sorry to interrupt you, Michael, but today I think Macron posted something particularly stupid, even for his standard, on X. He effectively said that after receiving a phone call from the Iranian president, he said, well, he assured me that they don't want to make a nuke. He assured me that they just use it for peaceful purposes. Well, as you mentioned, uranium enriched to 5% is more than enough to produce isotope for medicine and produce energy. Get to 60% is a threshold when you effectively 2 seconds away from creating a nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
So
I understand, everybody says, well, you have to get from 60 to 90 or 90 plus. And I understand from looking into this and listening to a few people, but it's days. I mean, it's not that much. You only have to make a 50% improvement. If you're going from 5% to 60% is a 12x improvement. By the way, it's 3 or 4%, most people will tell you, for any medicinal. So you're talking about a 15 to 20x purification. Going from 60 to 90 is a 1.5x or 50% improvement. It's nothing. It's a centrifuge run or two. Really, I mean, and by the way, all of these leaders know this. This is nothing new. This is all the baloney that we are fed day in, day out, because they assume people are stupid, and more importantly, journalists are corrupt, and journalists are not making simple statements like you just did, Marco, that says there's days between 60 and 90%. So Macron, we know Macron is completely corrupt. We know he's anti-Semitic. We know he's anti-Israeli. We know he's essentially anti-West. And to sit here and believe, first of all, the facts disagree with what he just said. The facts are very straightforward and simple. They're quantitative, game over. But to put it out there as a leader of France is despicable. And anybody who is a thoughtful person and believes in doing right or wrong should understand that Macron is evil. There's no middle ground here, folks. This is a number. The number is 3 to 4%. Iran is at 60%. This is pure military grade. End of story. I do think the last point I'll make is that I do think that Trump also, the Iranians offered to fly to the White House, an obviously idiotic situation. We've not talked to Iran since 1979. And Trump said, sure, they could come, I would probably have them. And he pointed out the slight problem of that any planes taking off from Iran with leaders in it would be destroyed immediately, because there are no Iranian flights over Iran anymore. There are Israeli flights. The irony of Israel having flights now to Tehran, which are the most common flights now leaving from Israel.
Yeah, absolutely. And as well as hearing from Macron, we've also heard advice from Vladimir Putin, who has said that he's never had any evidence that Iran was preparing to obtain a nuclear weapon. And he said that Russia would support Iran in developing its peaceful nuclear program. So there's that offer of help on the table. I think your point earlier about the 2-week delay and this Ayatollah being a symbol and that being a concern for many people, and irrelevantly so, but that's what it seems to be. And it also seems to have opened up a window for so many people to start spouting Iranian propaganda and to try and ramp up the PR campaign for Iran in the interim. And that includes within media channels, which are getting the foreign minister of Iran on to talk about how, it's got a right to defend itself and all that kind of stuff. And all these foreign leaders, all these international leaders, particularly in Europe, doing every bit of diplomacy in order to delay things, when really they should be taking out the Ayatollah. Now,
Okay.
in the reports I've read, the Ayatollah seems to be sometimes 85 and sometimes 86. Either way, I'd like him not to see his next birthday. But one person who won't see his next birthday is Saeed Izaki, who is the IRGC head of the, or he was, the head of the Palestinian Corps, and he was the one blown up in his apartment last night. And I think this is yet another reason to cheer. And what have you learned about this particular guy, James, in the scheme of things, and how do we fit him in among the many targets that Israel is successfully removing?
Get rid of all of these guys. Now, getting rid of him was particularly sweet, obviously, because of his role in October 7th. I mean, horrific. I will never be the same person after seeing the footage and reading the reports of October 7th, 2023. And so, do I have a particularly emotional response to his going? Yes. But it extends to the entire Iranian leadership, military and political. It could not have been done by one man alone. This has to be the national policy of Iran. And it is not, they have a right to defend yourself after all of the aggressive action that you've taken yourself against Israel and through your proxies. We've compared the situation to, Chamberlain dealing with Hitler in the 1930s. But really what we're looking at, and someone made this comparison on television and it really hit me hard. This is more like May 1940 for Israel. Can you imagine in the middle of 1940, someone in the United Kingdom saying, well, we'll have to have the German foreign minister on to explain to us how Germany has a right to defend itself after it is, taken over, basically created Fortress Europe, isolated one small country there that is trying to fight an evil dictatorship. And that's the situation Israel finds itself in today. Much more akin not to something a few years earlier, but to Great Britain in the middle of 1940, isolated in Europe against a fascist Fortress Europe. And that's what the situation is for Israel. Iran, with all of its proxies, the Houthis, who are now threatening to attack international shipping again. Can you imagine even tolerating at that moment anyone saying, well, Germany has a right to defend itself. Well, you guys started this war. You're attacking. You're the aggressors. You're now attempting to get more sophisticated weapons. Can you imagine? And this was part of the motivation for America to develop a nuclear weapon during World War II, getting the bomb before Germany did. We know Germany was trying to get an atomic weapon. We know what their missiles were doing across England. We know. Can you imagine? I want Brits, my dear British friends, to think about that. Had Hitler gotten a nuclear weapon with his new sophisticated missiles that were killing Brits, that Brits bravely, and again, we've made the comparison. Back in those days, my grandmother would tell me the story of the courageous resilience of British people repairing to the tube tunnels and still maintaining their good cheer. That reminds me of Israel today. Israelis hearing the siren, going down and maintaining their good cheer. The only comparison here is something like that. Now, I know that Germany was comparatively now think about that. Germany was a harder task. It would be much easier for Western powers to take out this aggressive, evil dictatorship. There is no reason why Israel has to live under the constant threat from this regime. And you have to hate Israel. You really do, if you don't see the situation with that kind of clarity. The Israelis today are like the Brits, isolated Brits in 1940 or so, who are faced with the imminent threat of missiles killing your people all the time. No people should have to live like that. Not the Brits in 1940, 41, not Israelis today. That's the situation. There can be no we've reached a point of such moral clarity here that, as Dr. Kaufman says, that if you're against Israel, you are not a good person. You're not seeing things with moral clarity. You are unable to see the good guy, you distinguish the good guys from the bad guys. And this is a test for civilization, just as Adolf Hitler was a test for civilization.
Yes.
That's my view.
Yes, and the Israeli also released a piece of intelligence. It's a communication between Izadi, the guy who's been blown up, and Sinwar and Dave, where they ask for $500 million to destroy the state of Israel. And of course, the reply is yes, okay, you can have the money, despite the fact that we're not doing very well economically and the people are suffering. But here you have $1 billion in order to kill Jews. I mean, Michael, how surprised are you about this kind of being one enmeshment between Hezbollah, Houthis, Hamas, and Iran, of course?
I'm sorry to be so cynical about it, but I'm not surprised at all. If you see the terror tunnels that were built in Gaza, and we've all seen plenty of pictures and we understand the extent of those tunnels, there are a lot of terror tunnels built by Hezbollah in the north. And I know everybody would be shocked, but Hezbollah continues to commit malicious acts in the north despite the ceasefire, and Israel continues to bomb the Hezbollah people doing that. And Macron continues to condemn Israel for bombing the nice Hezbollah terrorists who are just trying to restore their terrorist regime south of the Litani River against Macron's own agreement, blah, blah, blah. The entire collusion here is beautifully orchestrated. And you got to give Qatar and Iran credit for orchestrating everything from corruption of our universities. Essentially, we've corrupted down in junior high and high school, middle school and high schools in America. We've taught all kinds of moral relativism. We have Barack Obama, who stood up for moral relativism and said nobody's good and nobody's evil. We're all just humans and we all just trying to get the same thing. And just like when our ambassador in Libya was taken out and Barack said he would bring the perpetrators to justice, as opposed to that's an act of war and we're going to annihilate the enemy. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to talk to them and understand their motivations and give them a court trial, just like they were an American citizen. You've got the president, the ex-president of Harvard talking about this. And the reason I bring this out is because every institution that we used to hold as credible, almost every single institution, it turns out, has been colluding with this situation. You've got the UN that's actively funding UNRWA to put textbooks in the hands of young Palestinian kids to kill Jews. You've got the same thing by UNIFIL up in Lebanon, who UNIFIL completely blew their mission. I mean, their job was to keep Hezbollah out of southern Lebanon, and they did a phenomenal job of helping Hezbollah embed in southern Lebanon. So the notion, and the Houthis, why Trump stopped and allowed them to continue to fire at Israel is going to be one of the big questions when history looks at all of this. But they're threatening, the Houthis could be annihilated in one bombing, really. And we hear about how they're very clever and they're smarter than the other people. They're coming from one of the poorest nations on the planet. Iran cannot fund them anymore. America has 40,000 troops that we know of, that every journalist can tell you about and document where they are in the Middle East. We could get rid of these people in 2 seconds. We have unbelievable air superiority, and we're not trying to rebuild countries. Who needs to rebuild Houthi land, which is Yemen? Nobody does. So am I surprised by any of this? No. And then you've got Macron, who's the worst, I think, of all of the Western leaders who effectively supports all of this. You've got the UK, which is teetering on the brink of maybe starting to support Israel a little bit, especially if America gets in, and we'll talk about this. If America goes to war against Iran, Britain might follow. That's really what I want to hear from my government, that if Trump thinks it's okay, I'm going to do it because I can't make up my mind on my own. And you've got Germany, which sat down with Iran. Germany at least had more moral clarity. But Germany was part of this fiasco yesterday.
And that's
talk about what?
That's disappointing, because even Germany, which normally is better on this, joined in. All three of the economic powers of Europe were involved. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. I have no idea why Western countries have been coddling this evil theocratic regime that oppresses its own people, has a missile program, is obviously attempting to get, and I don't care whether they're days away, hours away, or months away. It doesn't matter when they say death to Israel, death to America, and you know they have a program to enrich uranium beyond 5%. I mean, they shouldn't have uranium at all, frankly. But when you know they have a program to enrich uranium like that, you know that there is a threat out there. What are they waiting for some dirty bomb to be exploded in their country? We are all in danger. All civilized nations are in danger from in the long run from Iran. And this is our opportunity to, if Western leaders had some clarity. That's why it's so absurd for Mr. Trump to be talking about ceasefires or continued chances and negotiations with the Iranians. No, that boat sailed long ago, Mr. Trump. It is time for action. But that, of course, would require moral clarity. And sometimes it seems to me that Mr. Trump wouldn't know a dictatorship from a civilized country if it bit him in the behind.
Yeah, that's the problem. And you know, we've seen that Iran has been an incubator for terrorist activity all over the world. It's not just Hezbollah, Houthis, and Hamas that have been funding, but they've been funding activity here in Britain, attempt to people in the United States, all over the world. So we know that these people are not out to do any good. What has Iran ever done for humankind, really, in the last 50 years? Nothing. In fact, it's been working against human life. But
one of the other people I wanted to mention, who was also taken out by Israel in the last 24 hours. To be honest, I didn't bother learning his name since he's already an ex-parrot. But anyway, the point of little Monty Python joke there for those in the know. Anyway, for him, he was the Quds commander for the weapons transfer unit. And his target, he was a target struck in his car, taken out by the Israelis from the sky. And one of the things he did was funneling $100 million through Turkey and Lebanon through a series of shell companies in order to help fund the terror that is propagated all over the region. So yet again, we're seeing somebody, a key figure, being taken out, and of course the funding lines being cut, and all the links and information between the different groups of terrorists being severed, which can only make the world safer.
These pusillanimous peaceniks have to get through their head that Iran is already doing everything they can possibly do. You know, they say, well, God, there's going to be this backlash. There's going to be, you know, who knows what they might do if America joins in. They're doing it. They're doing it. Though, how much more do you think they can do? They've gone all out right now. They're throwing everything in the kitchen sink at Israel. Now, I know they may be running out of missiles, but look, over half of the missile launchers have been taken out by Israel right now, and counting, and counting. They've already expended hundreds and hundreds of their missiles. What did they have, 2,000 of them? At some point, they will run out of missiles. And don't kid yourself. They've been doing everything they can through terrorists, through proxies. They're killing us, and they keep killing us. And we're in the position of saying, well, gee, you know, if America joins in, who knows? Iran could expand the war and start attacking America or Great Britain in domestically. Well, believe me, if they could, they would have. They have tried to assassinate Mr. Trump. They have tried to assassinate Iranian dissidents. They have failed. If they could have blown off a bomb in the United States right now, they would have. And we're already in the midst of them doing everything they possibly can, you know, full speed ahead at us. At this point, it is absurd to be afraid of, quote, blowback within Western countries should America enter the war. They're already pissed off at the West. Nothing America does will get them more angry or cause them to. Well, now we're really going to go after those evil Western countries because America is directly bombing us. I don't think that's the correct logic to use here at all. They're already doing what they can, in my view.
yeah, and to be honest, I mean, if Michael is cynical, I'm even more cynical, because I think some people are worried in the West, are probably worried about what's going to come out about the financial statement from Iran towards other countries. Because let's not forget, you know, I might be malicious, but let's not forget that France was holding Khamenei in 78, 79, just before he started the revolution in Iran. They allowed Khomeini to actually organize and control the revolutionary people in Iran from France, where he was in exile, because nobody else wanted to do it. And they let him do it. He even had police protection. So I begin to wonder, is Macron got some skeleton in the closet that he doesn't want to reveal? Well, hopefully we'll find out when they all fall apart, and we'll see the documents from the regime.
And that was another classic example of having your morality used against you. The fact that the freedom within France that allowed it for the freedom of speech and allowed people was used against the West by allowing this guy to spread the kind of terror that he ended up running Iran with and with his successor for almost 50 years. I want to mention a couple of more PC super chats. PC's been very generous. Thank you, PC, who says, firstly, and I do not think there were pro-German protests around the world then. Obviously referring to when we were talking about Germany earlier. And of course, yeah, you're absolutely right. In the Second World War, I don't think there were.
There were a few in Jerusalem, I think. I seem to remember that the Arabs weren't exactly anti-German, were they?
No, for sure. And PC also mentions Corbyn is anti-Israel. Well, you can say that again. And to be honest, that leads us quite smoothly to talk about the UK and this third story that we're going to cover, because this one's a bit of a shocker, quite honestly. If you haven't heard about this already, Palestine Action. Now, what happened a couple of nights ago, or yesterday even, it's been fast moving, this one. There, in the middle of the night, two activists on electric bikes entered the RAF Brize Norton in the middle of Oxfordshire in the UK. They broke into the Royal Air Force Base. They rode across the tarmac. They used fire extinguishers to spray red paint inside the engine of the Voyager Airbuses, two Voyager Airbuses sitting on the tarmac, and used crowbars as well to cause damage. And then they managed to ride out again. This is a military base in the UK, a major military base. So, I mean, Michael, this is being described as an act of vandalism and a stunt. Now, it's a bit more than that, don't you think?
Look, it's being described. I mean, everything is not anti-Semitic, and most things that are anti-Semitic are really Islamophobic. I mean, we've heard, we all laugh, but you know, every time we can't even say anti-Semitism in America still without talking about Islamophobia, at least in most venues. Obviously, it's anti-Semitism, and the question is, how many Jews we already have dead Jews. We already had Jews killed outside the Holocaust Museum. We already have people attacked with the arson attempt, with the lighting on fire. The question is, how many of these are we going to have before some leader steps up and says enough? And not this baloney of this will not be tolerated, because they're very good at saying that after the people are dead. But all of the philosophy and the actions or the inactions that led up to this stuff happening, including the incident you're talking about, are tolerated. And everybody who's a leader who's studied 2 minutes of history knows that if you tolerate this sort of escalation, it eventually ends up in dead people and destroyed property.
Yeah. And James, I mean, just to put it into context, this group, the Palestinian activists, they've committed about 170 acts like this. They work like splinter groups. They organize themselves in splinter groups. They don't. They put Chinese words between each group, so they don't really create something that can be stopped centrally. And you know, this is beyond nihilism, isn't it? I mean, the prime minister, the guy without a spine at all, said that this was an act of vandalism. It's disgraceful. Really?
An act of vandalism? Please, Mr. Starmer, please designate all of these people terrorist organizations. Please identify them as the criminals that they are. I have a dear friend who is a retired veteran from the United States Navy. And because of his credentials, he was able to give my wife and I sort of a mini tour of the Naval Air Base in Coronado here in San Diego. To get onto that base, we had to go through layers of security. when we went a bit too far in his vehicle, we were stopped by security on the Naval Air Station base. I am utterly astonished that these people were able to get on and do what they did at an RAF base. The government of the United Kingdom has a security issue, has a major security issue if these little punks with their little low-tech, attack an act of vandalism. Well, can you imagine if they'd had weapons, what they might have done? Well, they might fear blowback, and that's the only thing that would have stopped them. I mean, obviously, they could have done much, much worse. They could have damaged RAF planes. They could have killed personnel there. I mean, this should be a wake-up call to every Briton. Your military facilities are opened for attack. Security has to be tightened. Furthermore, any of these ideological pro-Palestinian groups have to be dealt with. They have to be infiltrated by internal security. They have to be treated like the criminals that they are, and not just vandals, but people. If they're breaking into an RAF base, they are a threat to national security. They are absolutely worse than, this isn't just some teenager spray painting some wall on a Saturday night. They're in an RAF base doing their damage to RAF aircraft. This is shocking. Yeah. That there has to be some kind of internal crackdown on any such group like this, and there has to be a major step up, it would seem to me, in military security in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the outcome should be a few court-martial and perhaps some resignation in government. But, of course, there's spineless apologists here in Britain, like Amnesty International, are claiming that this is too much to design them as a terrorist organization is too much. It's clamping down on the right to protest in the UK. Michael, I mean, have you ever protested by breaking into a secret, a safe base and destroyed equipment by millions?
The worst I ever protested was on the Ayalon Highway against Netanyahu's government when they wanted to get rid of the Constitution, or what the Israeli Israeli pseudo-constitution is. And I was escorted off the highway with my wife by the police there in a very orderly fashion. That's what we did. It's beyond absurd. I mean, really, people say, how much worse can it get? And the answer is, anybody who's right or good or defending the country, and you saw a lot of this crap in America when we had our military parade. We have a lot of people that are anti-military. They want our freedoms protected because they want the freedom to say how terrible America is. But they don't want the army there to do that. They want some mystical, it's like a community policing idea, or defund the police, because people will naturally just be good. And we don't really need military security and that kind of stuff to protect our rights, because the world is a good place, except for North Korea and China and Russia and Iran and, frankly, most of the countries in the world. The incredible stupidity is amazing. But again, it comes down to the leadership permitting this. I mean, I have to say, I'm very disappointed in a lot of Trump's policies, but one of the good things, he's not putting up with crap in America anymore. He's stopping the anti-Semitic baloney. He's getting rid of people, even though the courts are trying to bring them back, because God forbid, we let foreign nationals who are anti-Semitic leave the country because they're great contributors to the country. That's the court's position. And it's all about, we all know there's enough leeway in all this to get rid of it, but it's horrendous. And he's stopping the illegal immigration, and he's not interested in whether someone is a good person, meaning they didn't commit additional crimes. They are illegal immigrants. It's illegal. It is illegal to break into military installations. Full stop.
Yeah. And this is not the first time this group has done this, as Marco pointed out. I mean, last month, the same group, or a splinter of it, damaged US military aircraft in Ireland. They have a website which calls for criminal action all over, with spots marked on the map to show where to carry out your criminal action against companies and places they consider supporting Israel. They've sabotaged the arms manufacturer Elbit Systems and closed down 2 of their factories by breaking in and destroying all their equipment. And this is an arms manufacturer that also supplies the UK military with its ability to defend itself. And as part of that tweet that Marco read the start of from Keir Starmer, it went on to say, in relation to this incident that happened in Brize Norton, our armed forces represent the very best of Britain. Now, frankly, they didn't the other night because they should have shot these two guys, and they certainly should have captured them ahead of the activity and certainly afterwards. And then he went on to say, and the closing comment, talking about our responsibility to support those who defend us. He said, because he talked about the very best of Britain, they put their lives on the line for us every day. It is our responsibility to support those who defend us.
And right now, the only people who are defending us are the Israelis standing up to Iran.
Yeah, for sure. So closing words, guys. We're coming to the end of the show here. James, to you first.
It's enough with the fence sitting. You know, Ayn Rand had said it so clearly. You can't defend a philosophical principle with one leg on each side of every fence. And it seems like Western leaders right now, you know, you hear, oh, well, we might designate these, the people who pulled off this vandalism at an RAF base, we might designate them as a criminal or terrorist organization, but not really join in a full-throated defense of Israel. No, it's time to end the fence sitting. Anyone who is decent, moral, civilized in the world, don't end it. There are good guys, there are bad guys. There are two sides to every issue. One is wrong, one is right. That doesn't mean that there isn't room for not knowing or for a reasonable negotiation when you agree on principle. But what it does mean that when there's a moral principle at stake, there's a right and there's a wrong. There's a black and there's a white. And if this doesn't make that clear, if this situation does not clarify that in your head, I'm not sure what possibly could. You can find me at Facebook nearly every day there. I'm answering questions, James Stevens Valiant at Facebook. I'm also proud to say that I'm associated with this wonderful organization, the Ayn Rand Center UK, which is the best voice on this issue in the world today. Please consider becoming a paid subscriber to the Ayn Rand Center UK, where you will get moral clarity.
Yeah, I should add that James also leads study groups on peak-off sessions, for example, on a Sunday, and he does a great course on the Constitution, U.S. Constitution on Thursday. So if you want to have the chance to be part of this, just consider becoming a member. Michael, what about you? Last thoughts, and where can people find you?
Yeah, I think people have to become increasingly critical of so-called experts and pundits and so on. It is using your brain can be really helpful, and I'm saying that obviously with a little bit of facetiousness, but I mean it sincerely. When a group of European leaders tells you that they're going to sit down and try to discuss a deal with Iran, with essentially led by the Ayatollah, who firmly believes in a Shiite theocracy, worldwide caliphate. And you're saying, you've got to say to yourself, what possible compromise is this religious zealot going to make at this point? And by the way, Iran is getting decimated. And the fact is that like Hamas, Iran doesn't care that it's getting decimated. He will have his country flattened, and Israel is not going to flatten the country. Israel is going to flatten the military and the political leadership, which it continues to do. But he's going to, and it will take out the oil fields more than it has, and it will take out all of the manufacturing because a lot of it's used for missiles and so on. And the country will spend a decade recovering. But he doesn't mind if they have to spend 1 year or 10 years recovering. This is a religious zealot. He wants to go meet Allah and his 72 virgins. And we have to stop listening to these, really, they're absolutely intellectually dishonest, evil, morally corrupt people pretend that there's anything left to discuss with Iran. There hasn't been since 1979 in the revolution, and there sure as heck isn't now. Those are my parting words. Michael Kaufman, 2Fs, LinkedIn.
Thank you very much. And thank you again to PC, who's done a phenomenal number of super chats in this episode. We appreciate it. Who says Macron is nonsense. You couldn't put it more succinctly or more accurately than that. And we certainly would agree with it for sure. So thank you very much, guys. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, James. Thank you to our super chatters and our audience. And of course, we will be back tomorrow with the Daily Objective, even on a Sunday, 7 days a week. So please join us then, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Great. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.